Ahoy hoy, I'm Planarwalk, and today I'm going to be looking at a flat earth map that apparently does far better than the AE map, and just, does everything that the AE map can't do. And this is a video by Flat Earth Crush, so let's take a look, shall we?
Greetings and salutations, fellow truthers and flat earthers.
Ahoy hoy.
Welcome back for more mainstream hacking, flat earth smacking, globe earth whacking.
And don't forget no evidence backing!
The last couple videos I've been tinkering around with an entirely new flat earth model based on the transverse equatorial aspect of the azimuthal equidistant projection, or what I just call the T model for short.
That looks absolutely horrible. There is no way that that could work in reality.
Simply because it allows us to perfectly match all seasonal sun angles, paths, and positions never before possible in previous flat earth incarnations. And because it unexpectedly yielded a figure-8 path completed by the sun each year, as fully evidenced by repeated analemma patterns that faithfully depict the sun's vertical path north and south of the celestial equator as it performs its annual dance of declination, beautifully demonstrated by astronomy software such as Stellarium as well.
That's over the course of a year. Your model there doesn't seem to account for what happens each day. If you were to show what happens each day with the sun, then maybe we could have a decent look at your model, but it doesn't.
However, the sun's daily east-west paths are ellipsoidal circles, where everything above the equator operates virtually identically to the AE model, with the sun completely encircling a central north pole, approaching the Tropic of Cancer, traveling clockwise for 6 months, then crosses south of the equator where it directly approaches the southern Tropic of Capricorn for the remainder of each year, most directly during the southern summer solstice, and on only 2 particular days each year, on the all-important equinoxes, does the sun follow virtually straight paths, first as its northward crossing during the vernal equinox, followed by its eventual southward crossing, autumnal equinox.
So let me get this straight. For half the year the sun goes around the North Pole, but then for the other half of the year the sun goes around the South Pole for some odd, unexplained reason. Not to mention that even though New Zealand is in a pretty similar time zone to Japan, it's on the opposite side of the world. So with your model, New Zealand and Japan should never experience sunlight at the same time. It's actually sunny right now, so let me call up a friend in Japan. Konnichiwa. Asoko tayo wa sora ni aru no? Hai. Hai. Arigato. Sayonara. So in Japan, it is actually sunny usually at the same time that it is in New Zealand. Whereas in your map that you've got there, it's on the opposite side of the world, so it can't be sunny in New Zealand at the same time as Japan. That is a big problem for your map. The model that accounts the best for time zones and the motion of the sun is the globe model. Who would have thunk it?
I reached each of these rather surprising conclusions only after an exhaustive study of regional sun projection diagrams culled from every available latitude on Earth, and cross-checked all of the empirical data against trusted sites like timeanddate.com and suncalc.org, choosing this specific projection because it offered the clearest way of presenting the latest sun path information that lays out all seasonal trajectories even more competently and efficiently than the heliocentric model, as I shall now demonstrate.
Yet Japan is supposed to be on the opposite side of the world to New Zealand, despite the fact that you can see the sun in both New Zealand and Japan. Great logic there!
I am proposing that Earth's natural electromagnetic field, known as the magnetosphere, involves 2 equally stable and opposite circumpolar vortices over a flat Earth, with an electromagnetic central line of propagation running east to west instead of north to south.
Is it just me, or do flat earthers like to bring up electromagnetism as the reason for everything, despite clearly not understanding it fully?
This simple 90-degree rotation of the magnetic directions finally explains why the sun, moon, and stars are continually propelled east to west, while simultaneously explaining the continued stability of the counter-rotating circumpolar vortices generated within the north and south.
Now, I'm not an expert on magnets, Nor will I claim to be an expert on magnets, but this sounds like bullshit. So if magnetic fields ran from east to west instead of from north to south, wouldn't that mean that compasses would point east or west? You can't just go ahead and change how electromagnetics work because you need them to fit your model. That's not science.
It's exciting because it neatly explains how the sun, acting just like an electromagnetic pulse, follows the Earth's natural magnetic field lines.
So the sun is an EMP now. That would be all good and all if you could show exactly how it's supposed to work.
And again matches all recorded regional star trail motions, including around the North Celestial Pole star Polaris, the South Celestial Pole area near Sigma Octantis, as well as the perfectly straight overhead star trails running east to west over the equator.
But you'd still have problems. But at this point, this map just seems like a way to address some of the inconsistencies we see with the stars and the suns on the flat Earth, while also ignoring some of the inconsistencies we see with the stars and the suns that this map would introduce.
Furthermore, this model explains exactly why we have a celestial equator, and why the celestial equator remains fixed at one location regardless of where it is observed on Earth, something that classic heliocentric theory fails to explain at all. In the night sky, the celestial equator appears absolutely straight from any point on Earth and remains geographically fixed over Earth's equator. Officially, the celestial equator is caused by Earth's alleged rotation, but if the motion of the stars is caused by Earth's rotation, the celestial equator should in fact follow each observer from latitude to latitude, as any observation of it must be 90 degrees perpendicular to Earth's axis of rotation, which causes people at different latitudes to observe different celestial equators.
That would only be true if the stars were small and close. But the stars aren't small and close. They're huge and very far away. Moving 1,000 kilometers south doesn't do much when the stars are light years away. You know, the closest star to Earth is 4 light years away. In fact, converting that to kilometers puts it at 37 trillion kilometers away. There is no way at those sorts of distances that the celestial equator will move just by moving a piddly 1,000 kilometers.
So changing one's location does not affect the apparent motion of stars. This proves that there is no axis of rotation. Therefore, there is no axial rotation, period.
Or maybe your brain is just way too small to understand the scale that we're dealing with here.
Stars like A and B rising up from the east are propelled further and further apart as they head westward.
Did you really just take a photo that had both celestial poles in it and claim that the stars in it were moving further away from each other because of that photo? In other news, watch my fingers move further apart from each other as they approach you. It's clearly happening, see?
Causing real stars within the night sky to slowly stretch and expand away from one another. This separation of stars as we observe them is simply not possible upon a rapidly spinning ball.
Either that, or you're using deceptive photos and clips, because yes, stars closer to the poles will appear to move less than stars closer to the equator, but they all move with the same 15 degrees of rotation per hour that we would expect.
For on a spinning ball, the celestial equator would in fact be a matter of perspective, whereas the actual celestial equator remains geographically fixed.
Yes, it is due to perspective, but that perspective is so minuscule that it hardly makes any difference at all, so it appears to be geographic. You're cheering for the absolute annihilation of the planet we live on? You do realize that if the planet was destroyed like that, you'd have nowhere to live, right? What a fucking idiot.
Did I just hear somebody say idiot?
Oh yeah, that would be me, but this guy, he really is a fucking idiot. He cheered for the destruction of the planet. I think he might be a climate change denier.
Hey Planarwalk, Just wanted to stop by and let you know that you get the ding of approval from me and you were allowed to say idiot in your videos.
Cheers, man. Although I would have just said bucka if you didn't let me.
While I'm here, can I address this idiot?
Sure thing. I gotta talk to this guy in a black suit that's been hanging outside my house for a couple of days now. If he was wearing sunglasses, he'd look exactly like someone from Men in Black.
Well, alright, just as with all flat earthers, this idiot is trying to debunk a model of Earth that is not consistent with our heliocentric model, a fantasy land similar to Narnia. So let's begin.
While it is true that the heliocentric model correctly predicts the rising and setting sun's azimuth angles, there are in fact discrepancies between predicted seasonal sun paths and what we see in reality.
Alright, well let's stop it here first, because I can already see where this is going. When you think of the sun traveling overhead, it is easy to become confused and delusional about the properties of the sun and the geometry of our solar system. The paths that are depicted do not represent the path of the sun over the Earth, but however it represents the subsolar point on the face of a sphere as it rotates. Pay attention, because this understanding will come in handy in just a bit.
In the heliocentric theory, there are 5 main parallel latitudes. For our purposes here, let's focus upon the central 3 main parallel latitudes, the 2 tropics and the equator. Sun path diagrams in heliocentric textbooks always depict these 3 paths as perfectly parallel to one another, as shown here.
When we are discussing the parallel paths of the sun, we are only discussing the point on Earth that the sun is directly above. This does not actually describe the path the sun takes from sunrise to sunset relative to an observer on the face of the Earth.
Regardless of the changing angles and altitudes pertaining to sun paths as observed at different latitudes, the 23.5 degree separation of these 3 seasonal paths and their parallel nature are always a constant. In fact, spherical trigonometry demands these paths be straight and parallel.
And you're an idiot, because what you are showing is the sun's apparent position to an observer throughout the day, and not what the diagram was representing. So I beg the question, are you doing this intentionally, or are you just that stupid?
And heliocentrism absolutely insists upon this as well. The sun is supposed to follow these paths perfectly near the 2 solstices and 2 equinoxes over the tropics and equator respectively. Yet in reality, these paths can be shown to be neither straight or parallel.
This diagram predicts exactly what we should see if the Earth was a globe. Let's look at all the predictions for 27 degrees north latitude. On the June and December solstices, the sun will rise 23.5 degrees north and south of due east respectively, and on the March and September equinoxes, the sun will rise and set due east and west respectively. And on the equinoxes, the sun's solar point on Earth is always on the equator, so the solar noon reading of the sun will always equal their latitude, which you can see in this diagram. The subsolar points dictate that on the June solstice, the angular difference between the position of the sun in the sky will equal 27 degrees minus 23.5 degrees, or 3.5 degrees south of the zenith. On the December solstice, the subsolar point is at 23.5 degrees south, so we should be able to observe the position of the sun at solar noon at 27 degrees plus 23.5 degrees, or 50.5 degrees. All of these predictions are depicted in this diagram, pointing towards the conclusion that the Earth is a globe and flat earthers are idiots.
Showing these sun paths as parallel in school books is misleading at best.
No, it's not. Misunderstanding the model and then putting out a YouTube video for everyone to see is misleading at least, and evidence of your intellectual dishonesty at best. But you're an idiot, so who knows?
Even at 20 degrees north latitude, just a few degrees under the clearly curving Tropic of Cancer on the blue June solstice line from directly overhead, again, no straight parallel paths to see here.
So we can finally explain to him what he is getting completely wrong about his model. The first thing that you must understand is that the areas circled in red are the same for every person on Earth, and they represent the sunrise and sunset. During the June solstice, every observer on Earth will see the sunrise at approximately 23.5 degrees north of due east. This is completely due to the sun being extremely far away and much larger than the Earth. This guy even admitted earlier in this video that these diagrams predict perfectly the rising and setting of the sun, which should mean game over for the flat earth. But he's getting something really wrong with his conceptualization of this observable phenomenon. While the tilt of the earth is responsible for every person observing a similar sunrise and sunset, the tilt of the earth and your latitude dictate where the sun will be during solar noon. So on the June solstice at 20 degrees north latitude, our model predicts that an observer would witness the sunrise and sunset at approximately 23.5 degrees north of due east, and at solar noon will observe the sun at their latitude minus 23.5 degrees off their zenith, or 3.5 degrees north as depicted in his own graphic. I love when flat earth idiots prove our model for us, right, Planner?
Remember, during the June solstice, the sun is supposed to be directly 90 degrees overhead, moving straight across.
Not to keep kicking a dead flat earth argument, but I must point out again that these paths are not the path the sun takes for an observer, but a path that the subsolar point takes across the face of a sphere.
Yet even at 17 degrees north latitude, where a dashed black line showing perfectly level has been added, the orange-colored line up top showing the sun's path right over the Tropic of Cancer is clearly not straight.
I'm not exactly sure what I'm looking at in this diagram. He claims that this is observed at 17 degrees north and puts the subsolar point at solar noon at 10 degrees to the north. This observation has never been seen before, as the subsolar point never goes above 23.5 degrees, and this diagram has it clearly at 27 degrees north. Flat Earth dishonesty at its finest. Moving on.
Yet smart globings like Flat Earth Math will insist the sun travels perfectly straight across the sky all day long. And why? Because they have internalized false academic propaganda such as this.
I think it's more because Flat Earth Math passed middle school geometry, because these explanations don't even require an understanding of high-level science, just a basic understanding of spatial awareness. This guy is such an idiot.
Because reality doesn't care for adhering to deceptive propaganda.
You mean deceptive propaganda like all Flat Earth videos, including this one? Yeah, we've been saying that for hundreds of years now.
Do any of you out there seriously need to consult your equatorial mount scopes over this?
Not when I can just close my eyes and still see what's wrong with your model. Besides, the equatorial mount functionality seems to definitively remove the possibility that the flat Earth is even plausible. So he goes on to show more and more examples of his stupidity, and I'm just going to pass those as they all have the exact same explanation, and he doesn't know what he's talking about because he's an idiot.
You've been deceived. You've been lied to. Our children are being deceived and being lied to.
Flat Earth videos are meant to deceive and lie to the viewers as demonstrated in this video. If it's done intentionally, then they are idiots for being liars. If they do it unintentionally, then they are idiots for being idiots. Either way, we can all agree that flat earthers are fucking idiots. Back to you, Planarwalk.
Jeez, man, thanks for that. Apparently the guy in black wanted to know something about sunglasses. I told him to go just talk to Flat Out Hero. Anyway, on to the rest of the video.
Unfortunately, the skies above aren't exactly AE friendly either. For on the classic AE model, how is it possible to see the South Celestial Pole and its circling constellations looking south from different longitudes? It would be impossible to face south in Africa, Brazil, or Australia and see the same constellations at the same time. You'd be looking in completely opposite directions. But in reality, they can be seen on the same nights. Keeping the same latitudes, here's the view looking south from Australia at 130 degrees east longitude, followed by Africa at 20 degrees east longitude, and finally, looking south from Brazil at the Southern Cross at 60 degrees west longitude. On the AE model, where would one even look to view the singular South Celestial Pole?
He does make a really good point here. On the AE map, you wouldn't expect to see a southern celestial pole, yet we see one. However, what we see in reality doesn't match his model either. Let's go to 175 degrees east and 35 degrees south, roughly, maybe a degree or two off. So as you can see here, if you were to point your camera north while in northern New Zealand, the stars would appear to rotate around a point that's below the horizon. Furthermore, if we take the star Capella, which can be seen while looking north in the northern parts of New Zealand at the time of recording this video, and we go to Japan and point our camera north, and we actually look up, we can see this exact same star. This kind of observation would be absolutely impossible on the T model, because facing north in New Zealand would be facing away from the rest of the world. Now the rest of his video is mostly just debunking the AE model, which is perfectly fine to me because the AE model is pretty bad, as well as his model though. His model doesn't even account for things like flights. Just say someone like Greater Sapien wanted to fly from LA to Sydney, for example. He would have to fly across the United States to get there on his model. Whereas in reality, Greater Sapien flew across the Pacific Ocean, which matches exactly what you'd expect to see on the globe model. And I'm pretty sure there's heaps of other things that can debunk the T model that I haven't thought of. But anyway, that's it for this video. Leave a like and subscribe if you like that video. Leave a comment letting me know what else you think can debunk the T model. Be sure to go and check out Team Skeptic's channel, link will be in the description. As always, a big shout out to my $20 Patron, What Jesus. If you want to support me financially, you can do so on Patreon. That link will also be in the description. But anyway, I will see you in the next video. Between you and me, thank you for watching.